Chapter 7. A shocking sensation of bitter and sweet spilled across my tongue, accompanied by a sticky, crumbling sensation unlike any I'd ever experienced. It dissolved into a pleasing taste of... I had nothing to compare it to. Nothing happened to me either. No light burned through my veins, eradicating my essence. I wasn't consumed with guilt or pain. Perhaps the light in the food was not that strong. "What is it?" I asked, pulling it away and staring in wonder. "It's a brownie," Malik said, satisfaction in his voice. "It's chocolate." It's the perfect dichotomy of bitter and sweet, as if together they make a whole. I took another bite and was again enthralled by the sensation. The bitter makes the sweet sweeter. Malik stood, empty tray in his hands. "I believe you're joining us for group therapy at the Gabriel building this morning." I eyed Iblis's tray, wanting to snatch up another food item and try it. A new world had been unveiled from before my eyes, and I wanted to dig in with both hands. How like heaven to keep something this wondrous from us. "Group therapy?" I asked. "What is that?" "I read about it last night," Iblis said. "We all recently died and left behind everything we thought we knew about existence. Group therapy is supposed to help us connect our mortal life experiences and our deaths with our current life. And because we get to hear about what our classmates went through, it helps us become more united." I looked at Malik. He knew I hadn't died. I didn't have life experiences to share. "We've all experienced some kind of death," Malik said, not lowering his eyes from my gaze. "We've all ended one life and begun another." So that's what he thought this was for me. I would have to try the other foods later. I stood when the others stood, and we left the cafeteria as a group. The upper year students dispersed to go to their classes, while the beginning years moved toward the domed building lit on my screen. I lingered behind the group, fearful of accidentally bumping another student as we made our way toward the Gabriel building. They clustered together in a mob, and I wondered how they kept from touching. The Gabriel building was located adjacent to the library, behind another dormitory. At the threshold of the building, the students from my year stopped, looking as uncertain as I felt, except Malik, who pushed his way past everyone. I was certain he bumped at least one or two arms, but I had to be wrong. He didn't flinch, and the fires of heaven didn't rain down on him. "It's this way," Malik said, pausing to wait for us. "You'll know the way next time." "Why are you coming?" I asked, letting everyone else pass in front of us. "You're not a new arrival." "I'm the team lead for our dorm," Malik said. "It's my responsibility to orientate all of you. I also need to get to know each of you on a personal level." "Why is that?" He gestured me forward. "Come along, Jez, and learn about mortality." We entered a room with chairs set up in a large circle. A wingless man with a head full of curly red hair stood in front of a chair, smiling warmly and inviting each student who entered to have a seat. "Are you an angel?" a boy with dark hair and dark skin asked. "I am, Lake," the man said. "Then where are your wings?" "I've learned to control when they emerge." This created a small stir among the new angels, who must not have known the wings could be controlled. A few heads turned my direction, where I sat in between a small blonde girl and a large redhead boy. Well, Carubiel thought my wings had been torn off, and my classmates thought I'd learned how to retract them. I sat up straighter. "Now that we're all here," the man said, "let me introduce myself. I'm Master Lilith. I've been teaching at GAA for 85 Earth years. I died 200 years ago during an outbreak of the Spanish flu. I was 15. I leaned forward, enraptured in spite of myself. I didn't know about life on Earth. I'd never spoken to a newly dead about their earlier existence. When I went to Earth as a shadow, my focus was on my human target. The earthly surroundings were as dark and hazy to my eyes as I was to a mortal's eyes. I grew up in Ireland, the oldest of 6 children who learned how to plow the fields and grow crops to make money for our landlord. My father died 3 months before I did. When I died, I left behind my mother and 5 small siblings. They were left to fend for themselves." He paused. Their story did not have a happy ending. While I attended GAA as a student, my brothers and sister were starving, trying to take care of the land and crops with no man in the household. My 11-year-old brother became the male head of the household. When he couldn't bring in the cash crops necessary to pay for our piece of the landlord sold my siblings off one by one to pay the debt. Soft noises came from various chairs in the circle. I glanced around and realized a few of my classmates were crying. Some cried quietly, eyes focused on Master Lilith, a dignified, resigned expression on their faces. Others buried their faces in their hands, shoulders shaking, as if his story had somehow personally wounded them. This I could not understand. Why did they cry? Was it for Ilela's siblings? That made no sense. All of this happened so long ago, none of the students had even been alive then. Whatever suffering they might have experienced was long over. I kept an eye on my family and did what I could to intercede on their behalf. As soon as I graduated from GAA, I asked to be my brother's guardian. By then, he was 15, the same age as when I died. I held my breath, strangely caught up with his tale. Was he allowed to guard his brother? "And then what?" Iblis asked, looking as engaged as I was. Tears glittered in her eyes, and I wondered what part of his story resonated with her. Elith's lips curved upward in a smile. My request was granted. I protected him from evil and outside influences as much as he allowed me. He went on to get an apprenticeship that brought in enough money for him to support a family. He had a stable life, and eventually he had the means to seek out my other siblings and help them where he could. "A happy ending after all," another angel said, but his tone wasn't pleased. He sounded bitter, frustrated. Elith focused on him. "Happiness is often a matter of perspective, Jeremiel. Before I invite each of you to share what you wish of your deaths and mortal existences, please feel free to ask questions." "What happened to your mother?" Jeremiel said, his voice aggressive. He tossed a lock of sandy blonde hair behind his head, his blue eyes glittering. "You didn't mention her in all of this." "I couldn't help her," Elvis said calmly, not acknowledging the anger behind Jeremiel's words. "She became ill and died only a few years after I did." "And how is that fair?" Jeremiel's eyes flashed, and he clenched his fists together. "Where's the happy ending for her?" "What you perceive as an injustice is only the middle of a story. My mother's mortal life ended, but her eternal one had just begun. She lived a faithful life and passed through the gates of Shamayim without resistance." That brought a soft murmur from the class. "Have you seen her?" a girl asked. "Can we see our family members?" "Is my boyfriend here?" Iblis asked. "He was in the car with me." "My brother died from cancer 2 years ago," a boy said. "Is he here? Can I see him?" Ilolith held up a hand. "Your family members who have passed on are most certainly here. Children go straight to heaven and finish growing and learning under the tutelage of angels. Adults are held in Gehenna before moving on to their eternal reward. Or punishment, as it might be, but Elith didn't say that, and neither did I. Inhabitants of Shamayim are allowed to descend and visit you on breaks, but you cannot visit them until after graduation." His eyes focused directly on Iblis. "Your boyfriend is not here. He did not die in the car with you." "Oh!" She gave a little gasp, and I wasn't sure if she was relieved or disappointed. "Now, please, not only will you learn from each other in this exercise, but you will take the first steps to let go of your mortal self and mortal existence as you embrace this stage of your lives. We will go around the circle. I ask each of you to share as you feel comfortable, but please, be open with your classmates. It is how you will become a united group." I shifted in my chair with sudden anxiety, clutching the bottom of it tightly. What story could I tell? What fabrication could I create to make them think I'd had a normal Earth life also? But Malik would know. He would know I was lying, and lying would not be allowed. Elolith turned to the boy on his right. Israfile? Israfile, a young man with ebony skin and black hair, cleared his throat. Well, my name is Israfile, and I'm an alcoholic. The students tittered with laughter, and Israfile grinned, though I failed to see the humor. His smile dimmed. Really, I'm not. My name was Ethan, and I had cancer. I lived in Maryland with my mom and dad and sister. I knew I was dying. He hesitated. I actually saw my own guardian angel when I was passing on. He told me not to be afraid, and then he stayed with me until I arrived here. I didn't see a guardian angel, a girl said, cocking her head with a puzzled expression on her face. Not everyone has an assigned angel, Elella said. Some people only need an angel during times of duress. Most people see an angel of mercy at the time of their death, come to guide them during the moment of their passing. But everyone is administered to from time to time during their mortal existence. He focused on Israfile again. How has the transition gone for you? Israfile shrugged. Honestly, probably better than for others. I knew I was dying. I was kind of looking forward to it. And this is a heck of a lot better than hanging out on clouds strumming harps. Again, the students laughed, and I shifted in my seat. I should know the context of his jokes, but I didn't. They had all shared an experience together, a mortality, but I could not relate. They'd even shared the same historical time period on Earth. Elelith looked at the girl next to Israfile. Dara? The girl cleared her throat and gripped the edges of her chair, her long black hair draped over one shoulder, her sweeping eyelashes nearly brushing her ivory cheeks as she lowered her gaze to the floor. I grew up in Tokyo. Wait, Israfile interrupted, staring at her. How do you speak English so well? You don't even have an accent. She paused, blinking at him. We learned English in school, but I'm not speaking English. How can I? Israfile began, and Elelith chuckled. You're all speaking Adamaic, the first language, the language of the heavens. It was the first thing your spirits learned when you were created, and your intelligences reverted back to it instantly when you arrived in Gehenna. Oh, Dara nodded. So right now I'm speaking Adamaic, not Hebrew? A boy with deep-set eyes and hollow cheekbones said. That's right, Elelith said. Continue, Dara. She cleared her throat again. I grew up speaking Japanese, but I could get by in several languages. I'm an only child. One day, I was walking to school with my friends when there was an earthquake. She blinked, and twin rivulets crept down her cheeks. A piece of the building beside me collapsed on top of me. My hips were crushed. There were men there, men who tried to help me, but they couldn't. She choked on her words, her chest heaving as she sobbed. I wanted so desperately for them to save me. I had such plans for my life, to be a doctor, to travel, and now it's all over. There's nothing left for me. My heart twisted within me, an agonizing twinge welling up inside. Why did her story hurt? It's not over, Malik said, his eyes on Dara with an expression of complete sympathy. That life is over. Your new life has just begun. That's how you have to look at this. It's just the beginning. You're still going to do amazing things. Dara held her hands out in front of her, her wings flapping in agitation and creating a small wind tunnel around her. The hair lifted off her shoulder, swirling above her head. I'm never going to help people with these hands. Empathias are very powerful angels, Dara, Elelith said. You will learn how to use your powers. Empathias can accomplish many tasks, including healing. Your true nature will reveal itself. What if our true nature isn't a good one? Jeremiel said. What if we use our powers for evil? Elelith swiveled his face toward Jeremiel, but instead of fiery anger in his gaze, his eyes held infinite sadness in their depths. Some people do choose to use their powers for ill. That is their choice, but there is no place in heaven for those who do. But there's a place in hell for them. A short bark of a laugh escaped me, and I pressed my hands to my mouth, silencing the offensive sound. At least my thoughts had stayed put. "What about you, Jeremiel?" Elelith asked. "Would you care to share your story?" Jeremiel sat up in his seat, rocking the floor with his toes. Gray and red colors swirled vibrantly around him. I was sure I wasn't the only one who could see them. What did they mean? My story? I grew up in the inner city in LA. My dad ran off when I was 6. My mom worked the streets, and I joined a gang when I was 15 so I could provide for my 2 younger brothers. But I didn't have no guardian angel. He glared at Eleth as he spoke. I made my money thieving and breaking into houses, and one day the owner of the house pulled a gun on me and shot me. And there ain't no one protecting my younger brother now. I'm here instead of there. So what's happening to them? I'll tell you what, they're starving. My brother is probably initiating into the same life I was trying to save him from. Instead of taking one for the team, I let them all down, all because someone here didn't think I deserved a guardian angel. Each word left his mouth punctuated by a flash of red, and a spattering of soundless colors escaped as well. Black and gray. Silence met his story, and then Elelith said, "Your mortal suffering must have felt very great, but that time is over now. Now you— That's bull!" More soundless colors emitted from Jeremiel's mouth, and I realized suddenly that he was speaking in forbidden expletives. Arcadia did not allow that type of language, and thus we saw their meanings without hearing the sound. My curiosity piqued, and I studied Jeremiel more closely. What sort of angel was he? I waited for Elelith to reprimand him or chastise him, but he didn't. He stood up, that same calm look on his face, and said, "Thank you for sharing, Jeremiel, Dara, and Israfile. That concludes our class for today. We'll meet again next week. Everyone will have the chance to tell their story, but you will find it becomes easier as you adjust to life as an angel. I will see you soon." Was it over already? It felt like only 30 minutes had passed. Master Elelith left the room first, and slowly my classmates stood up and followed, whispering to each other while they clutched their agendas to their chests. I paused to open my book and check my next destination. "Ready?" Malik's voice next to my ear startled me, and I jumped, dropping my schedule. "Sorry," he said, bending to grab it at the same time I did. I withdrew my hand quickly before our fingers touched. Alarm spread through me at his lack of caution, at the lack of caution of all of the angels. I had felt the searing agony of spirit matter brushing spirit matter before, and I had no desire to experience it again. "Ready for what?" I asked, and I couldn't help noticing that my voice had a tremor in it. "Our study session." He held my agenda out to me, and I took it. Opening it up, I saw that, indeed, the library was my next destination. Wonderful. I couldn't wait to spend time with this arrogant angel who judged me when he didn't even know me. Chapter 8. I left the room ahead of Malik, though he caught up to me outside and matched my pace. His wings folded up against his body, the feathers quivering in the breeze, and I stole glances at them. "What's it like?" I asked somewhat timidly. "Having wings?" "It's one of heaven's greatest gifts to those who choose to follow the firstborn." The words were a simple statement of fact, and yet they held a stinging rebuke. I bit my lip and resolved not to say anything more unless required of me. I got to the library door first, and I pulled it open, then ducked through it and hurried to a table in the center of the building, not waiting for Malik. I was seated and staring blankly at the aisle in front of me when he settled down across from me. He dropped a fat book onto the table. "You haven't forgiven me, then." "For what?" I kept my eyes ahead. He heaved a sigh. "I already apologized for losing my temper with you, but I'll say it again. Sometimes my mortal emotions return to me and conquer my mastery. I'm still learning." I finally looked at him, and his calm demeanor irritated me. Such arrogance. "I made you so angry you lost control?" It doesn't take much to rile you up, does it? Why was I goading him again? I wanted to ruffle that emotionless exterior. He didn't rise to the bait. Instead, he steepled his fingers and met my eyes. Did you have any questions about the things you heard in the TLG meeting? The what? A trace of a smile crossed Malik's lips. The Transitional Life Guidance meeting. The one we just walked out of? Oh. My face warmed, and I pulled on my dark hair. Our therapy class? I didn't know it has a name. It does. Do you have any questions about it? The light brown of his eyes had somehow swallowed me up and distracted me. I blinked and then remembered his question. Yes, actually, there were several things I didn't understand. Ask. Where to begin? Jeremiel, was he using forbidden language? Yes, it's a normal reaction for many angels when they first arrive in Arcadia. They're frightened and scared, and that's one of the only ways they know how to lash out. So, there's no punishment for such behavior? Malik shook his head. Each of us is learning in our way. We give each other space for making mistakes. But this didn't fit my understanding of heaven at all. Doesn't each error count as a black mark on his soul? Errors are just another stepping stone in the school of life. No, that didn't make sense. There is a judgment, I said, wondering if Malik didn't know. The angels who have not lived out life according to heaven's rules and expectations are sentenced to hell and imprisonment. Jeremiel used the forbidden words. He's broken the law and is subject to the judgments. It doesn't work that way, Malik said. First of all, I'm not his judge, and neither is Master Alelith. Judgment is withheld until after our probational period is over. Mortal life was your probationary period. Now it's time to see who you really are. You are misinformed. No, I said. You don't understand. Jez, he held up a hand. There's no need for us to argue over this. One way simply is, and we will both in time see which way that is. His logic infuriated me. I pressed my lips together, angry at his self-righteous attitude. Other questions? He said, redirecting the conversation. Was there anything else from TLG that you weren't sure about? I tried to remember. Jeremiel's Earth life. He said he was in a gang? Please explain this term. Gangs are a problem on Earth. It's like having two sides in a battle, except the sides are small and the war is one they create, like who owns this street or who can shop at this store. I don't understand. You know battle. His eyes peered into mine. Yes, I glared back. Gangs are like armies, fighting each other, but they have no real cause. Then why do they fight? To show who is more powerful, who has the most team members. And this is a bad thing? Malik nodded. Gangs operate outside the law. They follow a leader, and if that leader tells them to steal, they steal. If he tells them to kill, they kill. He's in charge of them. This I could understand. They have no choice. They do, but at great consequence. Really, they give up their choice when they join a gang. I nodded. And his mom, working the streets? Malik rubbed the skin between his eyes. She sold her mortal body for other people to use for their own pleasure so she would receive material goods. I needed no further explanation to understand the severity of this sin. I wondered if she'd given in to a shadow and chosen that life, or if she'd been so desperate that it felt like the only option. Sometimes shadows weren't needed. She, on the other hand, would have become an instrument for the shadows to use to ensnare the souls of men. So she will go to Sheol when she dies. Malik shrugged. I am not her judge. But you can still say. I needled, annoyed by his answer. She is breaking some of heaven's most serious laws. The penalty is damnation. It's not so cut and dry as all that, Jez, Malik said. Yes, it is, I said. I have met many women in Sheol who were there for the same sin. That's the punishment. I'm sure you have. That doesn't mean every prostitute goes to hell. Why would they not? That's the law. He sighed. Some of these things you will just have to learn with time. I can't explain them to you. Then what good are you? He rubbed his nose, looking more weary than ever. Any other questions? No, I waved him off. I doubt you could answer them. I'll figure things out on my own. Do you have to be so difficult? He growled. He opened the thick book in front of him. Before we get started on your reading lesson, I wanted to tell you I did some research. I couldn't care less what he did. Good for you. He glowered, a hint of fire in his golden eyes. I found out why you weren't allowed to read. I stared at him, wondering what would come out of his mouth next. I knew he was going to tell me what he found out, whether I wanted him to or not. He turned to a page near the middle. It says here that renegades and the fallen are not allowed to read so that mortals can have safety in recording their private thoughts, dreams, and fears without concern of being overheard. Prayers that are written or uttered in the head are confidential, and demons cannot take that information and use it against a mortal. I narrowed my eyes. Says who? He closed the thick book in front of him. Says Master Remiel, the author of Living Among the Fallen, a discourse on demons. Never heard of him, I scoffed. You will. A smirk crossed his face, a single crack in his calm facade. He teaches here at the academy. Great. I kept my face blank, trying to appear entirely uninterested, but my heart raced with trepidation. What kind of stories had been written about us? That doesn't mean he knows what he's talking about. That's not why we can't read. Why then? He said, lifting his chin. It's a punishment from him. One more thing to make us inferior and keep us from improving our station in Sheol. Improving your station? Malik repeated. You can't improve your station. No demon can suddenly elevate who they are. They can't become light when they've been full of darkness, or change their nature and become... He drew up short, cutting his words off so abruptly, it was as if he sucked them back into his mouth. He looked at me, and I met his gaze without flinching. Well, I suppose the truth will come out. He looked away, not referencing his other words. He pulled out the notepad he'd had last time. Let's get started here. I watched him as he bent over the paper, my heart in my throat. I'd seen writing and symbols before, but the lines always squiggled out of my view, blurring and morphing so I couldn't focus on them. What would Malik do when I wasn't able to learn the writing? Why was Barakiel even putting me through this? Using a pen, Malik drew 2 lines that connected at the top, as if to make a triangle. But instead of connecting them at the bottom, he placed the 3rd line in the middle of the 2 connected lines. Can you see this? He lifted his eyes to mine. I can. I furrowed my brow, a bit surprised that the line stayed in place. A surge of hope flared in my chest. How? I've never been able to discern the symbols before. Malik tilted his head. Because you are... He hesitated. You were... a demon. He didn't want to say it, and suddenly, I didn't want him to either. I still am, I said shortly. I can't suddenly change my nature and become light. I threw his words back at him and felt a satisfying pleasure when his cheeks turned pink. He swallowed and said, You've been given enough grace to live in Arcadia. Why? I don't know, but that grace allows you to perceive the writing and symbols. Grace, he said, not light, because light came from within the soul, and we both knew my soul was black. It's fine, I said shortly. Let's just do this. What is it? It's an A. Malik's tone was hesitant, as if he still lingered on the thoughts of what I was or had been. You hear it in words like apple and acronym. Apple. I was familiar with that one, at least. I wasn't there when Adam fell, but many of the fallen shared the theory that the forbidden fruit was an apple. How do you spell apple? Malik made a few more symbols after the A. This is a P. It makes the p sound. My eyes traced the lines, absorbing the new information. There are 2 of them. I mouthed the word apple, trying to hear an extra p sound. Yeah, it's kind of redundant. You only hear one of them. I'm teaching you English, right, because that's what I know. Barakiel said in the end it won't matter, As long as you can read one language, you'll be able to interpret the others. But you have to know how to read one first. Oh, I kept my eyes on the symbols. And then? That's an L, followed by an E. It can be tricky because the sounds are reversed, but write another one. The letters had engraved themselves in my mind with an astonishing clarity, and I hungered for more. Okay. Malik wrote on the pad, then turned it around for me. This is the letter B. You hear it in baby and body. Baby and body, also important words. Write them. Malik obliged, making the symbol for B followed by an A, then another B, before adding an upside-down triangle shape with a tail. B, I tried. Malik shook his head. Here, the A makes a different sound. It's what we call a long A, like an 8. I tried again. B. I knew the word and the last sound, which meant the fourth symbol sounded like E. Good job. Malik beamed at me, looking both impressed and proud. You're a quick learn. It is easy, and my soul hungered for it. I soaked up the knowledge like a sponge, feeling as blank as the notepad before Malik wrote on it. Teach me more. It's good you want to learn, he said, and his smile seemed genuine. Knowledge is the only thing we take with us when we die, so the rest of us have an advantage on you. We're bringing all of our Earth knowledge with us. It's a lot to learn, but we can catch you up to speed. The next half hour flew by as Malik taught me the entire English alphabet with coordinating words. A bell chimed, indicating the end of our study session. Malik put the notepad into a bag and added the thick book to it. You did well today, Jez. Your eyes have been opened. He nodded his approval. Maybe we will make an angel of you yet. His condescension grated on my nerves. I stood also, grabbing my book tightly. Maybe I don't want to be an angel. Something glittered in his eyes, something like satisfaction. Then why are you here? He had me there. I turned away, holding my agenda to my chest, and stomped out of the library ahead of him. By the time I stepped into the cafeteria, the tables were buzzing with conversation and laughter. I picked my way through the students and almost avoided table D. But as I was about to bypass it, I realized that to earn my classmates' trust, I'd need to associate with them as often as possible, appear like them. Jez! Ipla swiveled to face me as soon as I sat, her face bright. The first Skyball game is tomorrow night. Want to go together? What in the sky is Skyball? I'd heard the term during orientation, but it meant nothing to me. Oh, you missed lunch today. The older students were telling us all about it. It's a combination of basketball and football, but of course there's flying and stuff to make it more interesting. I nodded along as if I understood her, but I didn't. I gathered that it was a sporting event, but I didn't know what kind. I'm surprised they have that here, I said. Sporting events are when humans tend to be the most irrational. They were prone to anger and impulsive actions when their blood ran hot at such activities. Right, well, Iblis shrugged. Apparently, that's why only third and fourth years can be on the team. First and second years haven't learned to control their emotions yet. She gave an eye roll. I see. So, you want to go with me? I may as well. Besides, I was intrigued. How did angels play sports? Had they really mastered the part of themselves likely to cheat or become angry? Iblis put away her tray and walked along with Dara, the two of them chatting nonstop. She didn't seem to remember me, and I lagged behind, unsure if I should catch up or sit by myself. Jez, long time no see. I turned at the sound of Kerubiel's deep voice. My eyes took in his dark clothing, this time paired with one of the Academy's jackets, the Emmett dorm symbol emblazoned in gold across the lapel. You're wearing the uniform? I said. Surprised? He arched an eyebrow. I guess eventually we all caved to the desire to fit in. He shoved his hands in his pants pockets. Going to the game? I was still mulling over his words. Was that what I was doing? Trying to fit in? Yes, it appears everyone is heading to the game. You don't sound too thrilled. I don't understand sports, I admitted, and I don't know anything about the game, or the games it's based on. Because your Earth life was so sheltered. Sports were not a part of my previous existence. Well, I used to play basketball once upon a time. I can tell you all about it. The thought of sitting next to Kerubiel during the game appealed to me. His shadow enveloped me, draping itself over his surroundings as he walked. For once, I didn't feel I had to pretend or change. If there was darkness in me, it found acceptance in Kerubiel. Iblis turned around, catching my eye. Jez, come on! I faced Kerubiel. Maybe next time, I told Iblis I'd sit with her. His eyes appraised me, the blue color bright enough to swallow me. Next time, then. His gaze slid from my eyes to my mouth, and a slow grin spread over his face. I'll hold you to it. He strode away, his wings folded against his back, and I stared after him, a little breathless. Something tingled in my chest, a longing that I couldn't begin to define. Chapter 9. Jez! Iblis beckoned wildly. Don't make me come get you! No touching. I wrapped my arms around myself as a reminder and climbed the wooden stairs to sit beside her. The stairs led us up and up, past the supports keeping the platform of rising steps high in the air. 3 other platforms also dotted the field. Angels who had mastered flight flew to their seats, while the rest of us climbed the stairs in the back. To our left sat the library, with its tall towers disappearing into the cloudy atmosphere. There! Iblis pointed, her arm crossing in front of my face. Can you see that hoop perched on the exterior wall of the library? I zoomed my gaze onto the building and saw a hoop extending outward from the tower. Yes, that's where the players put the ball. Ah. My eyes lowered from the hoop to the ground beneath it, and the familiar bitterness crept into my chest. This game could not be played by those without wings. Somewhere a whistle blew, and 2 rows of angels dressed in tight blue or green uniforms walked onto the grass in front of us. Each row held 3 people, and they came to a stop facing each other. Those are the players? I guessed. Yes. Master Sabriel, the woman who taught our creations class, stepped onto the field next. She carried a large orange ball in her arms. She must be the referee, Iblis breathed, her tone excited. I suppressed a smile. It was already starting. How would my classmates resist the impulsive emotional rush of the game? A whistle blew again. Master Sabriel held the ball up, and then she threw it at the ground. The moment the ball hit, it bounded upward, flinging itself into the atmosphere. Instantly, the 2 rows of players took flight. I found myself rising to my feet, my eyes wide as I watched the outcome. Who would get the ball? 2 players from each team stayed back while the other 3 players zipped into the sky. I could see them perfectly from where I was, as my vision was much clearer than that of mortals. The ball rocketed skyward, and I caught my breath as the blue-clad angel flapped his wings in the wind and bolted after it. They can fly so fast, I whispered. His arms wrapped around the ball, and he held on as if it fought him. Yes, Iblis had also stood. That's another reason why only 3rd and 4th years can try out for the team. You have to have control of your wings first. The angel barreled toward the hoop, and I watched intently, waiting for him to throw it in. But before he could, a flash of green shot down from the sky and wrapped itself around him. I gasped and leaned forward as if it would give me a better view. Around me, the students screamed and cheered, emotion thick in the air. Another flash of blue and green joined the huddle, and the group of angels with the ball seemed to come to a halt. What just happened? I cried. They tackled him, Iblis shouted. That's allowed? I could make out the shapes now of 4 distinct angels, except now they were falling toward the ground with their arms around each other, all grappling for the ball. It's a game, Iblis said. They're not going to hurt each other. That wasn't what I'd meant at all. The first angel broke free, but only for a moment. A moment was all he needed, however. He reared his arm back, the one holding the ball, and threw it, away from the hoop. I furrowed my brow in confusion until I saw his teammate, the one who had been waiting near the ground, soaring upward. She caught the ball in her arms. At the same time, the huddle seemed to realize the ball was gone and broke apart. The angel with the ball didn't hesitate. She bolted forward. The angels flew at her, but before they could converge, she tossed the ball to another angel, one I hadn't even noticed. Apparently, neither had the others, because he had a clear shot to the hoop. And he tossed that ball, his muscles bulging as he put his force into it. The ball flew through the hoop and then lost all momentum. It sank slowly back to the ground while the angels followed, patting each other on the back. My classmates cheered, and so did I. Iblis explained more of the game to me as we walked back to our dorm hours later. They told us all about it at breakfast. I don't quite get it, but there are 3 players on each team, and only one of them can score. They all learn different roles and have to stick to that, and they're allowed to use their gifts. How did they learn to do all that? I couldn't stop marveling at their speed or their coordination. Grigori, he's a second year, said most of them played sports on Earth. It was their talent. Skyball is an opportunity for them to continue their talent here at the academy. That's kind of cool, I admitted. What happened after they scored? The ball is degravitized when the game starts, and the angels have to keep it from zipping off into space. If it does, the team who had the ball last automatically wins. But as soon as they score, the ball falls back to the ground until the next play begins. And the scoring? I knew the green team had won, but I wasn't sure how. They hadn't put the ball through the hoop as many times as the blue team. That I'm not entirely sure on, but I think the farther away the player is from the ball, the more points they get for scoring. I never knew it could be so much. My voice trailed off because I wasn't even sure what to say. The emotional rush I had gotten from watching angels I didn't even know try to slam the large orange ball into a certain location was rather bewildering. Fun? Iblis grinned at me. Have you ever had fun before, Jez? No, I said it emphatically and without hesitation, and the smile wiped from her face. And then pity replaced it. Oh, Jez, I'm so sorry. Do you want to talk about it? Do you want to share what your home life was like on Earth? No, I said again, and I regretted answering her truthfully earlier. Now she would wonder. Now she had questions that a moment ago she hadn't had. All because I didn't think before I responded. Well, welcome to your new life. She clasped her hands together, and I knew she really wanted to clasp her hand with mine. You're about to experience all kinds of fun. I paused a moment, and then I asked, What about you? What was your Earth life? I wasn't just asking to take her attention off me. I was genuinely curious. She lifted a shoulder. You already heard about my death, my brothers, my family. What about the boy who was in the car with you, the one you kept asking about? Jason. Her face took on a happy glow. My boyfriend. And then the excitement went out of her. Do you think he still is? How long will he mourn for me before he moves on? That depends on the person, I said. Some people linger in mourning for too long, wallowing in despair. Others seem to brush it off and keep living without too much thought. She tapped her fingers against her palm and stared unseeing into the horizon. It's not that I wish he was dead, she said quietly, but I wish he was here. I miss him. Why? She turned to me and blinked, looking surprised by the question. Don't you miss anyone? No. Again, I winced, kicking myself mentally for the honest answer. I missed the darkness. I missed inhaling the lecherous thoughts of a weak human soul, of tasting the delicious decision to commit a sin. Something twinged in my chest, something uncomfortable. I frowned. Why would thinking of darkness make me uncomfortable? Well, I miss Jason, Iblis said, turning away and continuing the walk back to campus. I want to see him, even if he's forgotten me, but I hope he hasn't. What happened in the car accident? She shook her head, not looking at me. I'm not sure. It was February. The roads were slick, and I remember Jason losing control of the car. I don't remember anything else. When I opened my eyes, I was in Gehenna, except I didn't know that then, of course. Now she turned my direction. What about you? I should have seen that coming. I'd opened myself up for a question and answer session. I hadn't died. I had nothing like that to share. Same. I was in Gehenna, and Elder Master Brocchiel came for me. The Elder Master came for you? She lifted both eyebrows. Did he not for you? She shook her head. The woman, I guess she was an angel in disguise, but I didn't know, told me it was time to go. She told me to walk out the front door and I'd be where I needed to be. So I did, and I was here. An angel greeted me and showed me to the assembly hall. She must have made a portal with the door. I guess so. I don't really know what that is. Heaven's throne, I'd done it again. I pressed my lips together and resolved to be silent. The next morning, my schedule directed me to a building on the outskirts of campus. I made my way over there and spotted several other students heading that direction. Not all of them were from my dormitory either. I noticed the color scheme of the sweaters and ties change with each dorm. Sweaters and ties. How quickly I was learning their terminology and culture. Well, if it isn't the elusive Jez. I looked up to spot Cherubiel a few paces in front of me. He stood still, other than his wings, which opened and closed in a slow motion. You're here, I said, and something pleasing spiked in my chest. Looks like our dorms have this class together. His eyes scanned me from head to toe before landing on my face again. Still not in uniform? You either, I replied. He wore the same baggy slacks and the tight black t-shirt, which only called more attention to the magnificent wings spreading out behind his shoulder blades. This time, he'd left behind the academy jacket. Yeah, not happening. This isn't my place. I might wear the jacket sometimes. It's kinda cool. He fell into step behind me. His words resonated with me, but I couldn't let on that I didn't belong here. So, what do you intend to do? I asked. He glanced around and then leaned in close to me. I'll learn what I need to, stick to this charade as long as I can. Then, I'm out of here. A shiver ran through me at his words. No angel was required to stay at GAA, but there were consequences for leaving. Where will you go? He didn't answer, which either meant he didn't know or he didn't want me to know. He was not forthcoming about his plans, so I let the topic drop. For now. What class do we have in here? I asked as we stepped through the doors into an open arena. Weapons. A glint entered Cherubiel's eye. This is a very important class. Welcome, angels. A woman with flaming red hair stood in front of us, her legs spread apart in a defensive stance, a long bow in her arms. I am Master Ingram. Please put your bags down on the floor and gather around me, and I will explain the purpose of this class. I gathered in with the others, my gaze going around the room and studying the various weapons on display. Daggers lined an entire wall, and above them, pointed stars and sabers dangled in threatening manners. A shudder ran through me. I hadn't been created at the time of the first war in heaven, but I knew about it. I knew how the heavenly host descended upon hell with their cursed daggers and blades of damnation, destroying the fallen with single blows and changing the nature of the forsaken into weak and lustful demons. It had been an unprovoked massacre, a merciless show on heaven's part of what happened to any who disagreed. The very thought stung my eyes, and my hatred for these angels stirred within me. I wrapped my arms around myself and glared at the master angel in front of us. We will start with the daggers. This is a weapon of necessity for angels. Every one of you will be trained to handle a dagger, though some of you will have a better affinity for it than others. Why? A girl spoke up. I don't understand. We're angels. Isn't this life all about peace on earth and goodwill in heaven? Why would we need weapons? Master Ingram gave a patient smile. That is the goal, but we have still not attained it. The war between heaven and hell wages on. We fight for the souls of humanity, and we fight for our future, and we fight for the souls of the redeemed. That said, any time you leave on a mission, you will take a dagger with you. It's not necessary to carry one around on campus, but you want one whenever you leave the safety of heaven or Arcadia." I tried to rein in my breathing, but my thoughts were growing dark. I took a few steps backward, breathing heavily, trembling from head to toe. "Who do we use these weapons against?" a boy asked. "Humans?" Master Ingram's eyes were somber. "We will discuss the use of the weapons and the consequences in greater detail. You will be given your own dagger, especially for your use, and eventually you will carry it always. But that will not happen until you have passed this course and understand not only when and how to use it, but what will happen when you do. For now, everyone step over to this wall." I moved even farther back as our two groups crowded around the wall of weapons. "Today we will practice bow work, because the bows are a fantastic weapon for incapacitating a mortal threat. They don't work so well against Temptare, but we'll get to that. Before you select a bow, however, I would like you to get a feel for the daggers. Please, pick a dagger." I didn't move except to clutch my arms tighter. Such weapons of hatred and destruction. I felt it vibrating in my soul. How could these angels not feel it? "What do angels need weapons for?" I said, my voice hard and cold, "when the 5 points exists?" My question caused all heads to turn my direction, brows furrowed, eyes wide and quizzical. "A 5-point?" A boy I recognize as Daniel said. "Why don't you explain the 5-point?" I breathed, glowering at the Master Angel. "The 5-point is something we will discuss later, when we learn hand-to-hand combat," the angel said, not taking her gaze from mine. "Students, go ahead and touch the daggers, but do not remove any." Still glancing over at me, the angels studied the daggers, forgetting me as they touched the sharp blades and admired the shimmering, shiny handles. I needed to touch them also. It was imperative I act normal and proceed with the plan. But dread snaked up through my feet, paralyzing my legs. Ingram shifted sideways and maneuvered her way around the students, her eyes glued to me. I took a few more steps back when I realized she was coming my way. "You're Jez," she said when she reached me. Her eyes remained hard, and her mouth didn't pull up in greeting the way the other Master Angels did. It wasn't a question, but I nodded anyway. She frightened me. All she had to do was pull out that dagger and stab me in the forehead, and I'd become a substanceless wraith. It couldn't kill me, but it would take time to gather my essence together from the dust and reform myself, and each moment of that separation would be an eternity of agony. "You won't be receiving a dagger," she said. I reared my head back, surprised. "Why? I thought I was to have the same experience as the other students. I thought I was to be treated the same." She pursed her lips together, her eyes tightening. "Elder Master Brachial would like you to transition here a little longer before we ask you to take up arms." I understood what she didn't say. He didn't trust me. He wanted to see where my loyalties lay before handing me over a weapon that could injure his precious students. A dagger could not kill a being of light, but it could put one out of commission for a while. Well, I couldn't say I blamed him, but I'd been lied to. "So, I'm not to be treated just like them then," I said bitterly. "I'm already being set apart as different." "I'm sorry it feels that way to you," Master Ingram said. The perfect, manipulative, diplomatic response. "I will tell the students we are pursuing a specialized program with you for now." I laughed, seeing how she distorted the truth to tell the other students a story while not making it a full-out lie. "Just tell them I chose not to attend the class, then you won't be lying." I picked up my book bag where I'd set it on the floor and turned around, stalking out of the room.